Some mornings feel heavy even under a bright sun. That morning in Redemption Creek, Montana Territory, 1878. The sky was clear, the dust was warm, but the air felt wrong. People gathered in the center of town, shifting their feet, pretending they weren't watching something cruel. That's how many Wild West stories went. Pain didn't always come with gunfire. Sometimes it came with silence. On top of a wooden crate stood Eliza Hart, just 23, holding her baby Samuel close to her chest. He was only 6 months old, wrapped in a thin blanket, unaware of the eyes staring at him. Eliza kept her gaze down, not because she was ashamed, but because meeting anyone's eyes would break her. At the front of the crowd stood Jonas Pike, the banker. He smiled like this was normal business, announcing that Eliza and her child were being sold to cover her late husband's gambling debt. It wasn't violence, but it stole dignity just the same. People whispered that she was unlucky. Some said she'd been foolish to marry a man who loved cards more than work. But nobody offered help. Not one person stepped forward. $20, Jonas called. No one answered. A horse snorted. A wagon wheel creaked. Somewhere, a church bell rang once and then stopped. Finally, a voice offered 40. Another offered 60. Then 80. Every number felt like a wound. Every bid reminded Eliza she had no home, no food, and no future. Her baby whimpered, and she rocked him gently, whispering promises she could no longer keep. When the bid reached $100, Jonas clapped his hands together, going once. Then it happened. A single set of hooves echoed across the dusty street. Slow, confident. Every head turned. A tall rider on a chestnut mare approached the auction platform. Dust clung to his coat. Sunlight cut across his hat brim, and his face looked like it had seen too many lonely miles. No one recognized him. He stopped beside the platform, reached into his pribe's saddlebag, and tossed a leather pouch onto the wood. Coins spilled out gold, not paper. That should pay her debt, he said quietly. I'll take them both. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. This wasn't how Western love stories usually began. A stranger arrives late, pays a fortune, and asks for nothing? Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some said it was madness. Others said it was mercy. Jonas Pike checked the coins, scowled, and nodded. The debt was erased. Eliza expected a demand, a threat, a condition. Instead, the stranger simply held out his hand and said, "You're free now. Come off that stage." No hero speech, no boasting. Just a man doing the right thing while everyone else stood and watched. And that's how this emotional cowboy story began, not with a gunfight, not with a kiss, but with a quiet rescue no one saw coming. A stranger who wants nothing in return. Eliza expected the worst. In the Old West, help always came with a price. A roof meant obligation. A meal meant debt. Kindness was a currency most men expected, paid back in ways a woman never forgot. So when the stranger Caleb Warren lifted Samuel gently so she could climb down from the crate, her breath caught in fear, not relief. But Caleb didn't lead her away like she belonged to him. Instead, he said quietly, "There's a room waiting at the boarding house. You and the boy can rest there tonight." Just like that. No smirk, no entitlement. If anything, he looked tired, like he was used to shouldering the world without asking for thanks. Eliza followed, because she had nowhere else to go. The crowd watched them walk away, whispering behind palms and raised eyebrows. A heartwarming Western scene wasn't enough to change judgment. In small towns, rumors traveled faster than horses. The boarding house keeper, Mrs. Avery, nearly dropped her tea kettle when Caleb asked for the nicest room. It had a real bed, a patched quilt, a window that faced the creek. Eliza stared at it like it was a dream she wasn't allowed to touch. "You'll sleep here," Caleb told her. "I'll take the cot in the storage room." Eliza blinked. Surely she misheard. Men didn't surrender warm rooms for cold floors, not for strangers, not for widows, not for anyone. "You're not staying?" she asked. "No, ma'am," he said, already turning to leave. "You deserve rest, not trouble." He walked out before she could speak again. That night, Samuel slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. Eliza didn't. She sat awake, wondering who this man was. Why would a drifter with dust on his boots and loneliness in his eyes spend gold on a woman he didn't know? Downstairs, Caleb slept on a thin cot, boots still on, hat over his face. The world assumed cowboys were hardened guns, whiskey, and fistfights. But this was something else. Quiet honor, the type of cowboy hero tale people rarely talked about. In the morning, the town buzzed. Some said Caleb was a fool. Some said it was a country love story waiting to happen. A few whispered that he must be hiding something, because no man helped a widow without expecting her heart or her body in return. Caleb ignored them. He brought blankets, bread, milk for Samuel, and a small bag of coins for Eliza to keep. She refused it. "I can't take your money." "It's not charity," he said. "It's respect." Samuel reached for him, smiling with tiny hands stretching wide. Caleb chuckled and let the child grab his finger a small moment, but powerful. A dusty drifter becoming a baby's safe place? People saw it and didn't know what to do with it. Later that day, Eliza overheard him speaking to Mrs. Avery. He wasn't bragging, wasn't retelling the story. He said just one sentence. "Her husband saved my life once. I'm only returning what's owed." Eliza covered her mouth, eyes filling. For the first time in months, someone saw her not as a burden, but as someone worth protecting. And that was the moment fear began turning into trust. The quiet journey toward hope. The next morning, dawn came soft and gold over Redemption Creek. Eliza opened her eyes slowly, surprised that she had slept at all. The quilt smelled faintly of lavender. Samuel was warm in her arms, his tiny fingers gripping her dress. For a moment, she forgot the auction, the debt, and the humiliation. Morning felt gentle, rare, precious. Downstairs, Caleb Warren was already awake. He returned from the general store with bread, a tin of milk, matches, blankets, and of all things, a hand-carved wooden rattle shaped like a horse. Samuel stared at it, then laughed. It was the first toy he had ever held. Eliza's throat tightened. No man had ever spent a dime on her child, not even his father. Caleb didn't ask for thanks. He simply said, "The wagon leaves at noon. If you come, you'll have a safe place with fresh water, food, and quiet." A safe place. The words felt unreal in a world where widows had to beg for crumbs. Eliza stared at him, waiting for the catch. There had to be one. But Caleb only placed his hat on his head and walked to the stable. Rumors swirled fast. Some townsfolk claimed Caleb was running from the law. Others said he was a lonely rancher craving company. But a Wild West emotional love story like this didn't need villains. It needed patience, respect. Slowly, Eliza saw that Caleb wasn't hiding anything. He simply wasn't used to talking about himself. At noon, she stood by the wagon with Samuel in her arms. The road ahead was long and rough. But staying in town meant more shame, more whispers, and more nights wondering how her child would eat. A warm breeze lifted the edge of her shawl. Samuel gave one of his small, tired cries. "I'm ready," she whispered. Caleb nodded, helped her climb onto the wagon seat, and gave the reins a gentle flick. The wheels creaked forward. Townspeople watched from porches and shop and windows. Nobody called her a burden. Nobody called her a shame. Instead, several women lowered their eyes, almost humbled. A few men even tipped their hats. The prairie rolled out in endless waves of grass and sage. Elk tracks crossed dusty soil. Meadowlarks called from fence posts. Eliza breathed for what felt like the first time in months. By late afternoon, dark clouds gathered. Thunder trembled low. Caleb scanned the sky. Storm's coming fast. There's an old line shack 3 miles ahead. We'll make it. Just as pounding rain hit, they reached a weather-beaten cabin tucked against a rocky bank. Caleb started a fire, laid blankets down, and shared dried venison, beans, and bread. Samuel slept peacefully beside them, belly full and warm. For the first time in her life, Eliza slept without fear of footsteps outside her door. When she woke at dawn, Samuel was in Caleb's arms, rocking gently. The fire was still burning. Outside, the storm had passed, and sunlight spilled across the valley. Something changed inside her that morning. Not love, not yet, but safety. And in the Old West, safety was rare enough to feel like a gift from heaven. The ranch that felt like a second chance. 2 more days of travel brought them to a quiet valley with rolling hills, wildflowers, and a narrow creek with bright, clear water. At the center sat a small log cabin with a brick chimney puffing blue smoke into the sky. Chickens pecked the ground. A horse grazed lazily near the barn. It wasn't paradise, but it was peaceful. And peace was something Eliza had forgotten existed. "This is Warren Ranch," Caleb said. "It's not much, but no one will bother you here." Not much? To Eliza, it was everything. The wooden porch needed repair. The garden was overgrown. But it looked like a real home, something she never truly had, even before her husband died. Caleb unpacked supplies. Eliza carried Samuel inside. The cabin smelled like cedar and fresh bread. There was a small table, 2 chairs, a narrow staircase leading to a loft, and 1 bedroom on the ground floor. "You take the room," Caleb told her. "I'll sleep up there." "No," Eliza protested. "I can't take your bed." "You're not taking anything," he replied gently. "A mother and a baby belong under a roof, not on a floor." He fixed the loose porch step so she wouldn't trip while holding Samuel. He fetched water from the creek. He fed the horses. He chopped wood. Every small kindness was steady and quiet, not loud or showy. A real cowboy hero tale didn't need bragging. Eliza cleaned the kitchen, shook dust from the blankets, swept the floor, and hung cloth to warm the room. Samuel sat on a quilt, playing with his wooden rattle. The baby laughed at the chickens. He giggled when Caleb whistled. His cheeks were pink again, something Eliza hadn't seen since the day he was born. Soon, the ranch began to feel like a place where hope lived. In the evenings, they sat at the table while Samuel slept in a basket by the fire. Caleb showed her how to cook with rosemary, sage, and canned tomatoes he had preserved last season. Eliza brewed coffee in the mornings, humming lullabies while Samuel reached for the sunlight slipping through the window. One night, as they watched the fire crackle, Caleb said quietly, "You don't owe me anything." Eliza didn't know how to answer. No one had ever done something this big without wanting something back. She waited for the catch that never came. On the frontier, survival depended on strength, but sometimes kindness was stronger than any gun. For the first time, Eliza believed this ranch might be more than shelter. It might be a second chance. A mother learns to live again. Days passed like slow, gentle breaths. Morning chores, fresh air, warm meals, small things that felt enormous after months of hunger and fear. Eliza cleaned, cooked, watered the garden, and hung laundry in the sun. Samuel grew stronger. His cheeks filled out, his eyes brightened, and he slept through the night with steady, peaceful breathing. The ranch wasn't just shelter anymore. It was home. Caleb taught Eliza simple ranch tasks, feeding chickens, tending the vegetable patch, stacking wood. He showed her how to ride his mare, Rose, a patient horse with kind eyes. The first time Eliza sat in the saddle, her hands shook. "You won't fall," Caleb said softly. "I'll walk beside you." And he did. One slow lap around the corral led to another. Soon, Eliza was riding freely, her skirt brushing Rose's sides, wind lifting her hair. She laughed an honest laugh she never expected to hear again. Caleb looked away, pretending not to notice the sound that warmed his chest more than the summer sun. That week, word arrived in town. Whitefish Creek Founders Day was coming. Music, pies, a parade, dancing, one of the only celebrations that made frontier life feel normal. The neighbors invited Caleb and, by extension, Eliza and Samuel. Eliza's stomach knotted. People had seen her humiliation. They'd watched her auctioned like luggage. How could she walk into a celebration with her head high? Caleb saw the fear in her eyes. "You should meet folks," he said. "Let them see the woman you really are, not the woman they talked about." Eliza shook her head. "I have nothing to wear." Caleb went to the general store and returned with a simple sky blue dress. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, just respectable. The moment Eliza touched the fabric, tears filled her eyes. "No one ever bought me clothing without wanting something in return," she whispered. Caleb didn't answer. He just set the dress on the bed and went outside to split wood, letting her cry where no one could see. That night, Eliza held Samuel close and stared into the fire. She felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Possibility. She wasn't sure she was ready for town, but something inside her whispered maybe. Samuel deserved a life where people smiled at him rather than pitied him. And maybe, just maybe, Eliza deserved that too. One thing was clear: frontier life wasn't only about hardship. Sometimes it was about small moments that rebuilt broken hearts. And tomorrow, she would face the world not as the woman who was sold, but as the woman who survived. The day she realized people could be kind, Founders Day arrived with fiddle music drifting across the fields and the smell of fresh pies cooling on wooden tables. Eliza held Samuel close as Caleb helped her step down from the wagon. She wore the sky blue dress, simple but beautiful, and her hair braided like she once did before sorrow had stolen her joy. Still, her hands shook. The last time she'd stood before a crowd, they had watched her humiliation. Today, the people of Redemption Creek watched her return. At first, everything was too loud, too bright. Strangers stared. Mothers whispered. Some men looked away, ashamed they had once bid on her like property. Samuel fussed, sensing her nerves. Eliza almost turned back. But then a warm, familiar voice called, "Eliza, dear." It was Mary Caldwell, the kind woman from the general store. Mary hugged her tightly, as if nothing shameful had ever happened. She touched Samuel's small hand and said, "He's a strong boy, and you're a brave woman." Brave? Eliza had not felt brave in a long time. A moment later, Sheriff Adler approached. He tipped his hat. "I heard what happened. You're safe now. If anyone gives you trouble, they answer to me." His tone held no pity, only respect. Slowly, people began to see her as a person, not a scandal. Children ran circles around Samuel's blanket, making him laugh. Mrs. Caldwell handed Eliza a slice of warm apple pie. A neighbor offered wool for winter quilts. Another woman invited her to join the quilting group. Whispers turned into smiles. Judgment turned into welcome. Caleb stayed back, letting her have her moment. He didn't hover or act like a savior. He simply watched, proud without saying the words aloud. A heart-touching Western moment doesn't need speeches. Sometimes just standing nearby is enough. As dusk settled, a fiddler played a slow, gentle tune beneath lanterns glowing in the trees. Couples moved in easy circles. Laughter floated through the cool evening air. Caleb walked toward Eliza, wiping his hands nervously on his vest. "May I?" he asked. Her breath caught. She had not danced since before Samuel was born. Before hunger, before fear. Eliza looked down at her worn shoes, then up at Caleb's steady eyes. She nodded. He held her gently, not like a possession, not like a prize, but like someone whose heart he was willing to protect. As they swayed to the music, Eliza realized the stairs had changed. No one looked at her with judgment. They looked at her with hope, like she belonged. When Samuel squealed happily in Mary Caldwell's arms, Eliza let a smile slip across her face. It felt new, but right. The kind of smile that belonged to a woman who finally had room to breathe. It wasn't love yet, but it was trust. And in the Old West romance, trust was sometimes the first step toward healing. That night, as they returned to the ranch under stars bright as lantern flames, Eliza whispered to herself, "Maybe people can be kind. Maybe life isn't over." Samuel slept peacefully against her chest, and for the first time, she believed tomorrow would be better. When kindness turns into belonging, the days after Founder's Day felt different. Not louder, not busier, just softer, kinder. Eliza woke each morning to sunlight touching the cabin walls and Samuel babbling happily in his basket. The ranch no longer felt like a stranger's place. It felt like life beginning again. Eliza started cooking warm breakfasts, corn cakes, eggs, biscuits, and Caleb pretended not to be impressed, though his smile always betrayed him. He split wood while she swept the porch. She hung laundry while he fixed a squeaky cabinet door. They worked like two threads, finally weaving into the same cloth of frontier family story living. At night, Samuel curled in Eliza's arms while Caleb carved small wooden animals for him. First the horse, then a little cow, then a bear. Each tiny figure held hours of patience in its edges, proof of a gentle cowboy hero who spoke more through actions than words. One evening, Eliza stepped outside to gather herbs. She returned to find Caleb on the floor beside Samuel, whistling and tapping one wooden toy against another while the baby squealed with delight. It wasn't romantic. It was deeper, real. A picture of what a small ranch family could look like if trust was given a chance to bloom. Soon, they settled into routines that felt almost sacred. Eliza taught Caleb how to soothe Samuel with lullabies whispered in the softest voice. Caleb built a wooden cradle so the baby no longer had to sleep in a basket. Eliza stitched curtains from old flour sacks, turning the cabin warm and welcoming. They shared coffee on the porch in silence, comfortable silence, the rare kind that didn't ask for anything. Weeks passed. Autumn touched the valley, tinting leaves gold. As the nights grew colder, the cabin's fire turned into the heart of the home. Caleb slept in the loft, but some evenings he stayed downstairs long after Samuel fell asleep, talking with Eliza about small things, weather, chores, ranch repairs. Nothing grand, but every word wrapped the air in safety. Then came the night that changed something quietly, but permanently. Caleb was climbing the ladder to the loft when Eliza spoke from the doorway of her room. Her voice was barely more than a breath. "You don't have to sleep up there," she said. "The sofa is warmer." Caleb paused, one hand on the ladder. He didn't smile, didn't move quickly, just nodded once and came down. He stretched out on the sofa, pulling a quilt over himself while Samuel slept in the new cradle. Eliza lingered a moment, fingers resting on the doorframe. She didn't say thank you. She didn't need to. Trust didn't always need words. When she closed her bedroom door, she felt safe, not because someone rescued her, but because someone cared without asking for anything in return. That was the night the ranch stopped being just shelter. It became home. The first real family dinner Sunday arrived with the smell of fresh bread and sage drifting from the kitchen. Eliza woke early, tying her hair back and rolling up her sleeves. Today felt special, and she wasn't sure why. Maybe because Samuel had slept peacefully. Maybe because the cabin felt warm and lived in. Or maybe because she finally felt strong enough to do something kind in return. She prepared rabbit stew with potatoes, carrots, and herbs from the garden, cornbread baked in the iron skillet. Berries simmered over the fire until they thickened into a sweet crumble. It wasn't fancy. but it was made with gratitude, something her heart had been holding for weeks. Caleb returned from the barn, smelling of hay and wood smoke. He stepped inside, froze, and stared at the table set neatly with 2 plates and a wooden high chair Caleb had secretly been building for Samuel. He wiped his hands nervously on his vest, like a schoolboy unsure what to do. "You cooked all this?" he asked, voice quiet. Eliza nodded. "You've done so much for us. I wanted to give back, even a little." Caleb sat down slowly, like he wasn't sure he deserved a seat at his own table. Samuel squealed happily as Eliza gave him mashed potatoes. The tiny family sat together, sharing a meal without fear, without hurry, without anyone watching. It was the first time Eliza felt like part of a ranch life love story, not a tragedy. Halfway through supper, she finally asked the question that had been living in her mind since the auction. "Why did you help us?" Caleb set his spoon down. For a moment he didn't speak. Then he looked at Samuel, then at Eliza. "Your husband, Daniel Hart, saved my life once. Kansas, winter of '73. He dragged me out from under a fallen horse while bullets were flying. He never asked for anything, never bragged about it. When I heard his name at the auction, I couldn't stand there and do nothing." Eliza blinked slowly. Daniel had been a gambler, unreliable, and lost in his demons. But Caleb remembered the part of him she tried so hard to hold on to the good. "You didn't buy us," she said softly. "You saved us." Caleb shook his head. "No, I honored a debt. That's all." But the way he looked at Samuel told a different story. The emotional Western story wasn't just about paying back a friend. It was about giving a mother and child a chance to live, not just survive. After dinner, Eliza washed dishes while Caleb dried them. The fire crackled. Samuel slept in his cradle, cheeks rosy from warmth and food. A simple evening, but filled with more meaning than grand gestures ever could. When the lanterns dimmed and they said goodnight, something invisible settled in the room, a quiet sense of belonging. Not spoken, not promised, but present. It wasn't love yet, but it was care. And in the West, care was the first brick in the foundation of family. Winter, warmth, and wonder winter announced itself with a sudden gust of cold that swept across the valley. Snow layered the hills like white wool blankets. The creek slowed, ice climbing along its edges. Most folks dreaded Montana winters, but for Eliza, it meant safety. No bankers, no gossip, no strangers arriving with questions. Inside the cabin, life turned peaceful and slow. Caleb chopped wood until his shoulders ached. Eliza dried apples, canned vegetables, and mended quilts. Samuel learned to stand by, holding onto the table, his laughter echoing off the wooden walls. Some nights, snow fell so thickly it silenced the world. They sat by the fire, telling small stories. Caleb shared memories of ranch work and faraway places. Eliza read from a children's book someone had gifted at Founder's Day. Samuel curled between them, eyelids drooping as warmth wrapped him like a blanket. For Christmas, Eliza saved a scrap of blue fabric and sewed a small scarf for Caleb. She was nervous giving it to him, afraid it wasn't good enough. But when she offered it, his eyes softened in a way she had never seen. Then Caleb stepped outside and returned with a wrapped bundle made of brown paper and twine. Inside was a painting Eliza holding Samuel beneath a cottonwood tree, sunlight touching her face. He had painted it himself. Every brushstroke was gentle, like each line carried respect. Eliza couldn't speak. No one had ever seen her the way Caleb did, not as a burden, but as a woman worthy of love, care, and dignity. That night, as the fire glowed low, Eliza whispered, "I never thought someone would choose us." Caleb's voice was steady. "I didn't choose out of pity. I chose because I see a life with you." Her breath caught. Their hands touched. Neither moved away. Caleb leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to stop him. She didn't. Their first kiss was soft, warm, and full of unspoken promises. No rush, no fear. Just two broken souls learning how to heal. Afterward, they sat in silence, listening to the fire. Snow fell outside, but inside, warmth grew stronger than winter, stronger than loneliness. Samuel slept in his cradle, the wooden horse tucked beside him. The baby who had once gone days without milk now slept in a home filled with food, laughter, and love. The ranch wasn't just shelter, it was family. The ending that feels like a beginning spring arrived slowly, melting snow into rushing creeks and painting the valley green. Samuel took his first steps in the front yard, wobbling toward Caleb, who scooped him up with a laugh that echoed across the hills. Eliza stood on the porch, hand over her heart, watching the two people she loved more than life itself. One evening, as the sun set gold behind the mountains, Caleb asked Eliza to walk with him to the old cottonwood tree. Wildflowers dotted the ground. Samuel toddled in the grass, giggling as butterflies drifted around him. Caleb stopped beneath the branches, his hat in his hands. His voice was quiet, steady, certain. "Eliza, when I first saw you in town, you looked like someone the world had forgotten. I don't ever want you to feel that way again. You and Samuel made this ranch a home. If you'll have me, I'd like to be your family." He knelt in the grass and held out a simple silver ring. Nothing grand, nothing flashy, just honest. Tears filled Eliza's eyes, not from sadness, but from finally feeling safe. She didn't care about money or fancy things. She cared that Samuel would grow up loved, that she would never be auctioned, whispered about, or afraid again. "Yes," she breathed. 1,000 times, yes. Caleb stood, lifting her into his arms. Samuel clapped his hands, unaware of what the moment meant, but somehow feeling the joy in the air. Words spread through the valley. The town that once whispered now celebrated. Mrs. Caldwell offered to sew a wedding dress. Sheriff Adler promised to host a small ceremony. The preacher said he'd be honored to bless a pioneer love tale like this one. On their wedding day, neighbors gathered with flowers, pies, and music. Samuel stood between them, holding both their hands. Eliza walked down the grassy path in a dress made of simple white cotton, stitched with love. Caleb waited under the cottonwood tree, heart pounding like the first time he saw her. They spoke vows with trembling voices. Not promises of perfection, just promises of loyalty, kindness, and family. When the preacher announced them husband and wife, the crowd cheered. Samuel reached up, asking Caleb to hold him, and Caleb did like he had always been meant to be Samuel's father. That evening, the family stood on the porch, watching the sun sink behind the mountains. Wind moved through the grass. The world felt safe. Eliza leaned her head on Caleb's shoulder. "You didn't buy us," she whispered. "You gave us back our lives." He kissed the top of her head. "And you gave me mine." A cowboy didn't ride in to save a widow. He rode in to build a home, one gentle act at a time. And that's how this heartwarming Western ends, not with sorrow, but with hope, family, and a love strong enough to last through every season the frontier could bring.